Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In a previous video, I showed you how to install Postgres using Docker, and in this video, I want to show you how to load data into Postgres using a Python script that will generate the SQL statements necessary to load that data. And so, sharing my screen here, this was a tweet that I had on Twitter where I shared that code, so this is the code we'll be using to do that. But to get started, what we're going to want to do is download this CSV file here. Again, if you don't have Postgres installed, you need to watch my other video to have that installed first. It'll be required for this video. Once you have downloaded this CSV file, what you want to do is you want to come over here to Google Sheets, and you want to launch a new Google Sheet and import, upload the cars.csv file. Now, I'm going to import this CSV file, and you're going to see that it does not automatically separate. And the reason is because the delimiter in this is actually not a comma, it's actually a semicolon. I could have, told it right up front what the delimiter was, but I wanted to show you guys the long way. So split text to columns under range, or under data, sorry. And instead of detect automatically, we're going to select semicolon. There you go. So these are our headers here. These will eventually become our column names in our table. And then below it, you can see it gives us actually the variable data type here. So you have string, double, integer, and I believe that means category, which is really just another string. I'm going to go ahead and delete this row because we don't actually need it. And the rest of these look pretty good. So we are going to go ahead and what are we doing? Download tab separated values.tsv and show this in Finder. We're going to rename this file to just cars.tsv, and then we're going to come over here to the project folder that we have, create a new folder called tsv, and drop that TSV inside of it. While I'm here, I'm also going to create a SQL folder, and that is because when we write the script, it's going to generate a SQL file, and we're going to put it in that folder. So I think that's all the prerequisites we're going to need. We'll be back in a sec to grab this code from my blog, Tux Labs. But for now, let's come over here to our editor. Mine is PyCharm. And I'm going to want to create, again, this project was created in a previous video, so if you need to, go back and watch the Postgres Docker video and you'll be caught up to speed with where we're at. But we want to go ahead and create a new file, and I'm just going to call it SQL generator.py. And then, as I said, I'm actually just going to take this code and copy and paste it from my blog. So just real quick, this code uses pandas and NumPy. So before we do anything else, let's jump over to our terminal. Looks like I've already sourced my environment, but just to get everyone on the same page, if you're in here and you have a virtual environment, you're going to need to source it before you install your libraries. And so pip install pandas will actually install NumPy as well. Whoops, mine's already installed because I used it on a previous project. But anyway, it will actually install NumPy as well because it's required for pandas. So after you've installed that, you're ready to go. I'm going to come back over here. So this if name equals main means that if this program is run from the command line and it's not being imported, to go ahead and run what's below it. And so this calls the two functions above. One is parse TSV to DF, which stands for data frame, which is a pandas, I don't know, data object, I guess, or what I call it. It's like a matrix. I don't know what to call it. In any case, really quickly, the TSV file here is called my table. We know that's not true. The one we downloaded and exported is called cars, so we need to change that. Similarly, in the print SQL, which prints the SQL to the file, we need to call the table name cars. and then the actual file name we're going to want to have as cars_seed.sql. So once all those are done, we're sort of ready to go. I do just really quickly want to call out that the separator here for the read CSV function is tab, which is what tells pandas to read a tab separated value file as opposed to a CSV. Another important note is that I don't do CSV because sometimes data has commas in it, which gets really ugly really quickly. So tab separated values tends to be a safer data format to import from when going into SQL statements. Additionally, and sort of similarly, Pandas creates these NANs or nons, which if you're familiar with JavaScript, you'll see that for like null values. We don't want those in the data. We just want empty strings. So here we're doing a replace for those into an empty string. Additionally, we're replacing any single quotes with two single quotes, which escapes the quotes for the SQL statements on the Postgres command line or just SQL statements. So the print SQL function, which is called next after the parse TSV to CSV, accepts that data frame. And then we open a file and we go row by row in that data frame, and we actually end up joining it and make it a CSV again. And that's because if you were looking at the insert SQL line, you would see like columns, comma, well, column, comma, column, column, comma, column, comma, column, so on and so forth, and value, comma, value, comma, value. So that's what we're basically recreating here with this line here and this line here, and then the SQL statement is ultimately created here. So a little bit complex to look at, but you can sort of like run through it. It's a simple code snippet and go play with it and figure out how it works. But it's pretty cool. And what's nice about this is you have like full control over what happens. So if it didn't meet your exact needs, you can change it. After that, I believe we're ready to go. I may have forgot something, but we're going to go ahead and try to run this. That looks like it worked. So if it did, and I go into the SQL folder, I should see, yep, cars.seed. And that looks good to me. So what we should be able to do now is say PGSQL or PG password. This is how we connect to the database, but we actually want to feed into that the seed file that we just generated. Oh, we forgot to create the database table. So this is going to fail because before we do all that, we need to go into the database, and yes, we don't have a cars table. So we're trying to like load that data into nothing. So let's fix that really quickly. If we look back at our TSV or Google Sheet here, we can see that these are the table columns that we need to create. And so we would do that like so. We would say create table cars, and now we're going to specify the header columns that we were just looking at. So the first one, well, the first column in any table is generally a unique ID. So we do ID, the data type is serial, and then we do car, var, whoopsie, varchar 255, which is just like a string, MPG numeric for floating, so that's miles per gallon, cylinders, which is always going to be a round number, so it's going to be an integer. Displacement is also an integer. Horsepower, integer. Weight, integer. Acceleration, numeric, it's a floating point, and model, integer, and one more is going to be origin, which is where you saw it say US and whatnot, which is also a string. And that should do it. Yes, that created. So now to see what it created, you can see there. And you can select from cars and see that it's totally empty. All right, now we're ready to load data into this. So I think I just realized that I never started my Docker container in this tutorial. So just to be clear, I had this running from the previous one, but just to show you how to do that, in this folder, I would say Docker compose up, and that would restart my container. Anyway, sorry, a little bit all over the place. Now, like I mentioned, we've already got the SQL generated, so now we are ready to import, whoopsie, wrong way. We are ready to import our SQL. So this should populate the cars table. Uh-oh, I did see one error. It's likely that there was a floating point data type messed up. Yep, so there was a floating point on an integer column, and I'm not sure which one. We're not going to worry about it. Basically, one insert failed. But now we're going to go back into our table and select star from cars, and we should see all the data. Beautiful, about 400 rows or so. So let me just full screen you guys for a sec. So in this video, I just showed you how to use that quick Python script, which you can get from my blog at tuxlabs.com, to parse your TSV file, create SQL statements, and load it into Postgres. Again, this is great because it gives you full control over the parsing. You could do mathematical operations or whatnot. But if you did want to do a straight copy of a data file, CSV or TSV, any kind of delimiter, into Postgres, when I posted this on Twitter, a friend of mine said to me, "Hey, how come you didn't just use Postgres copy?" Because I didn't know it existed when I came up with this a couple years ago. I should have. It existed at the time, but there's a lot of things you just miss. You don't always Google the answer and you think, oh, I got to create a script. So hopefully the script is useful to somebody, even though there are other methods of doing it. And I really enjoy making quick little handy scripts in Python. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and let me know if there's any other things you'd like me to do videos on. And I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.